Hey, what's up, everybody? Dean Rogers here. Welcome back to the Dean Rogers Show. Today, we got another special guest, Victor Heredia. Victor, what's up, man?
What's up, man? How you doing, brother?
Thanks for coming. Yeah, likewise. I'm excited to get into this with you today because you got experience in a lot of different areas. And just to give everybody a little quick teaser, so you got started by, and I'll let you share it, but you heard somebody getting interviewed talking about wholesaling, and you were already in the corporate world. It got you excited, kind of lit a fire on you, like, hey, if this guy can do it, I can do it too. And so you got started there. It sounds like relationships have been a key theme throughout your journey. And so I'm excited to dive into that because I'm a big believer of relationships. And so you've done flipping, wholesaling, and you've got some really great strategies and tips to share with people. So I'm excited to dive in. And if you're looking to connect with Victor, you guys can check him out on Instagram, Vic, V-I-C Heredia, Heredia. We'll throw it up on the screen, but make sure you guys check out Vic and stay in touch with them. So, Victor, let's get started, man. Let's talk about how you got started and what that whole journey looked like.
Gotcha. Well, I worked in a corporate job. It was a family-owned business. My cousin was a big farmer and grower down in Mexico. We used to ship product globally. So I used to handle accounts like Whole Foods and Walmart and Safeway. Those were my accounts. I handled them directly. So yeah. So I would fly down to Costa Rica to meet with their global buyers and up in Watsonville, California to meet with Whole Foods Global. And so it was on a corporate level because we're a big farming operation. So we were doing business with Del Monte and big companies, right?
Yeah.
But, it wasn't where I wanted to be. As part of the family, the owner was my cousin, and I could see his lifestyle and his level of success. He had 3,000 employees, and I don't want to say how much they're worth because I don't know exactly, but I know it was substantial. I mean, with that many employees, right? So I saw that. I'm like, well, I wanted that for myself. And it just got to a point where I realized, hey, the only way to get to that level is to do it for yourself. And
so there was like a limitation, right?
Correct. 100%. Yeah, 100%. So, and that was it. And so, so I was always looking for some ways to make money. I want you just want more. You want a better lifestyle. You want to improve the quality of your life, right?
Yep.
And I used to work for a guy years ago, Don Lepre. He was like an infomercial guy. And he was the owner. And he would say, when you're working for someone else, you're helping that other person achieve their dreams, which is true.
Yep.
So I always had that entrepreneurial spirit, but also seeing that in my family, right? And my cousins, they were all pretty successful. So I ran across Ty Lopez was interviewing this 18-year-old kid doing $100,000 a month wholesaling, and his name was Jaden White, which a lot of guys might know. And so I just started following him, and I'm like, what is this guy about? What's he doing? And that led me to Alex Saenz and Carlos Reyes, and they happen to be here in town. So I messaged them. Me and Carlos kind of hit it off. I started talking to Carlos about
Carlos
it.
Carlos is a cool dude.
Carlos is a really good person. Alex as well, and Sal, they're all good.
Yeah, all good people.
Yeah, but also too, they were really young too. I'm like, well, where did these guys learn it from? Like, how did these guys get into the business? And they were successful in their own right, but I knew like, well, they learned it somewhere. So I did more research, and it turns out they learned it from a lot of other people, but mainly I think the big guy was Sean Terry, right?
Yep.
And so I ordered Sean Terry's course, and that kind of led me down the rabbit hole. I studied that for 3 months straight. And then I think I did my first deal in 10 days. I think a lot of guys struggle to do a deal, but because I studied so much, I was able to do my first deal in 10 days.
That's amazing. And shout out to Sean Terry. That's how I got started, listening just by getting lucky, typing into Google how to get started in real estate, found his free podcast and just took action on it. So I love that, man.
Well, it's cool because it's full circle, because I learned about wholesaling. I took his course when I wasn't making money, and now I'm in his mastermind, and like I'm a facilitator for the mastermind, and we're actually now good friends. So it's kind of cool how it's kind of come full circle, right? So
yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, Sean Terry, he's just he's an amazing giver and just wealth of knowledge and very inspirational. So that's awesome. Now, what was your first deal that you did in 10 days? That's incredible.
So my first deal was it was a foreclosure. I just called this couple, and it was funny because I think a week prior, I told Carlos, like, hey, I'm getting into it, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, yeah, if you run across the deal, let me know. So I called, like, just, grind it out on the phone, right? I just made the calls, made the dials. And it was a couple that was in foreclosure in Glendale. And I called Carlos. I go, hey, bro, do you think this is a deal? He's like, yeah, that's a deal. Lock it up. So I went to the house. I had a conversation with them. I got the contract. As soon as I got the contract, I drove to their office. And Carlos wasn't there, but I was there. I'm like, hey, I got a contract. And
he drove to the office.
Yeah. He's like, you got a contract? I go, yeah, I got a contract. They're like, man, that was fast. Because I had just talked to them, right? Like a week prior. That was super fast. And so I guess because I gave the contract to Sal so quickly, he was like, hey, bro, you want a job? So he offered me a job. It was kind of funny. And then that first deal, I think we made $22,000 on it. And then we split it. It was like a JV deal. We split it and went from there. And that's kind of how we started doing more deals.
That's amazing. Yeah, my first deal was $12,000 co-wholesaling it with Sean Terry. To bring it full circle, I was listening to his podcast. I was doing the strategy he was teaching. So I was following it so closely. It was actually in Phoenix, his market. And then I was like, well, I'm having a hard time selling it. And other people probably heard the story, but I contacted his team and Sean got it sold. So
that's funny.
Super cool.
That is cool.
That's so cool, man. So you walk in the office here, I got a contract.
Yeah, exactly.
I just talked to you. Let's make this deal happen. That's incredible. So where'd you take it from there? Like, what was your next step? You got the taste, you proved to yourself you could do it. You got that proof of concept.
Yeah.
Where did you grow from there?
So then I'm like, okay, cool. Then let's do more deals, right? So I wanted to really focus on the acquisition side. And I knew about dispo companies. I was okay with someone else dispoing my deal. But I didn't like the way some of these guys operated, and also too, of course, send it to a cash buyer. But there's one guy. So then I got my next deal, and I called the guy. I go, hey, what can you sell this deal at? He's like, what'd you get it at? I'm like, well, what can you sell it at? He goes, what did you get it at? I'm like, what can you sell it at? And we went back and forth, and it kind of turned me off. I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter what I got it at. Like, what can you sell it at, right? So that kind of turned me off. And so then I talked to another guy, and he tells me. He's like, well, ARV is probably like around 140. And I was like, no, ARV was 230. I'm like, no, that's not right. I'm like, that it's higher than that. He's like, yeah, well, maybe it's 165. I'm like, no, that's not right. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'll pay you $5,000 above what you paid. And I was like, you know what, guy? I'm like, we're done. I didn't tell him that, but we're done. Yeah. So then I called Jamil. Like Keegley, because I had met Jamil at a real estate meetup. I called Jamil. I go, Jamil, hey, I got this deal. What can you buy it at? He's like, I'll pay you this. I forgot what it was. I don't know if it was like 140 or something. He's like, I'll pay you this. I'm like, cool, let's do it. And then it's funny, the other guy called me, and I just like the way he's like, he didn't play no games. He was just direct. Yep. And he just gave me an answer. He was transparent and open. He's like, hey, I'll pay you this. End of story. I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it. And this other guy called me, and he offered me, I don't remember now if it was 7,000 more or 13,000 more. I think it was maybe 7,000 more. He offered me $7,000 more, but he wasn't, because being in business, like you realize, like it's not about the money. Like you want to work with people that have integrity. Mm-hmm. Which Jamil had shown me that, right? Where this guy didn't. So even though he offered me $7,000 more, I'm like, no, I already sold it. He was like, dude, I'll pay you. He goes, what did they offer you? I told him I don't remember the amount, but I remember he offered 7,000 more. I'm like, nah, it's okay. He's like, what? I'm like, nah, I already committed to him. It's
Yep.
already done deal. Too late. And so then I started working just with Keegley, just doing my dispo, and just kind of we did that for quite a while, working with Jamil and with Thomas and the people there, and I did that for quite a while.
Yeah, that is such a golden nugget right there. Everything that you said and what you stand for and how you handled that is exactly what I preach to other people too, because when you're building relationships with other people, it's all about integrity. It's all about trust. And, we both wholesale properties. When I go to wholesale a property, if someone calls me, says, I'll take it, and let's just say it's at the price I want. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Let's do the deal. I hang up the phone. I haven't sent them the contract yet. I get another call. I want it. I sold it already. I'll pay 5,000 more. This guy said he'll pay 7,000 or whatever. I already sold it. I gave my word. I haven't signed the contract, but I gave my word. If I go against that word and go and burn the other person, that starts to get around. And that's now a behavior that you have. That's not going to last. Yeah. It's not going to serve you well. And those relationships are not going to take you as far as the ones that if you really take care of them and you do the right thing and stand behind your word, that's where you can really build a strong, good, long-lasting business.
Correct. And then even now, like with some guys call me, even if I know they're new, they don't know much about the business. And I mean, if I wanted to, I can take advantage of them, but I'm not going to do it. I'm like, listen, this is probably what it's worth. We could probably sell it at this price. If you want to do, we could do a split or whatever, but that's probably what we could sell it at. Or, I can buy it from you at this price. So I try to be as transparent as possible. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't do good to burn people, because then it burns your reputation too. And your reputation is more valuable than money. Way
more valuable. Yeah. I tell people that too, because we do a lot of JV deals, and the logistics of doing those deals, we prefer to have basically the full control of that deal. So because we're experienced, we do it all the time.
Right.
And we want to make sure that the experience with escrow, with the end buyer, everything is streamlined and not, like a daisy chain or kind of looking messy. So we have them assign it to us for $0 and basically give us full control of the deal. And then we'll split it with them after we close escrow. And for some people who don't know us at first, they're wondering whether they can trust us or not, because there are some weird characters that will try to do funny business, but your reputation is everything, and you got to do it right. But it's funny. I've run into a few buyers where they're like what you were saying. What did you get it for? Well, it doesn't seem like I should tell you because you're asking that. You're asking that for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it doesn't matter. Can you buy it for this price or not? Exactly. And the whole I've seen some chats online on Facebook. Oh, I don't think anybody should make more than 2,500 or 5,000 over what they got it for. Who are you to determine what I should make? Like, exactly. I'm spending all my time, resources, effort to get this opportunity, and there's a certain price that's reasonable for someone to buy it and make money too. It doesn't, so it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I got a friend of mine. He owns 1,300 homes. We do a lot of business. We do flips together, and he funds some of my deals. And he's like, "You're not going to believe this, Vic. Look at this HUD." And he emailed me a HUD. He paid, I think, $230,000 in assignments.
Wow.
And it was like a few different guys, but it was like $230,000 in assignments. He was like, "I'm not happy about that." He was, "But hey, I got the deal." I'm like, yeah. So that's like a good attitude to have, right? But that's crazy, right? It was a high-end house, right? It was a pretty expensive house. But he paid $230,000 to different guys in assignments, which is kind of nuts. But he had the right attitude about it. But that's also why he has 1,300 homes. He works really well with people. He's honest. He's fair. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also too, I mean, like what you do. We do the same thing. Like I got guys that trust me so much. I'm like, hey, dude, I'll do that deal if you put it under my contract. So they won't even put it under their contract.
Absolutely.
They'll put it under my contract. And then I'll take care of the deal, and then we'll just do a split, So and they know, and then, And then you show them the HUD too. I'm like, well, here's the HUD, here's our expenses. Like, this is what we made. And, that's it. So,
Yeah. All boils down to trust.
Correct. Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome, man. So you got the wheels turning, you got some proof of concept, you got some more deals going. Like, where did you take it from there? What was that next moment that took you to the next level?
So from there, we kept doing a lot of JVs. But then what happened is COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And then once COVID hit, we had like I think 5 cancellations. But I knew there were deals, but there were cancellations. So because everyone stopped buying, I'm like, well, I got to find a way to get these deals sold. So then I just started hustling. I just started, looking for buyers on my own because I know I couldn't depend on anyone else at that point. So I just started hustling, finding buyers. And there was one buyer that kept appearing on my assignment. I started looking at my past assignments and I'm like, okay, well, these guys are buying a lot of deals. So I called them. I'm like, hey, I noticed you've been buying my deals. Are you still buying? He's like, yeah, but we're being more conservative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I was forced, after getting 5 cancellations, within 2 weeks, I was forced to find my own buyers. So I started doing that, because I didn't want to lose these deals because then I'd be out of business. So I just started hustling, trying to find other buyers. And then I started doing basically my own dispo. So that worked out for quite a while. I built up some good relationships. I met a lender, and the lender started, funding my deals. So we started wholesaling more. If it was a good deal, if it was a low risk, if it didn't need a lot of rehab, like I told you, Terry Summers mentioned to me that the property has more than 40,000 in remodel. He's going to wholesale it. So if it didn't need a lot of work, I would wholesale it. I would get the money for it and then just list it on MLS. And then we did that for a while. And then shortly after that, we started coming across the hedge funds. And so the way that worked is I got a property in Austin and I looked at the buyers in the area and there was one that had 23,000 properties. And I was like, wow, I'm like, who's that? Yeah. So, and that everyone knows who that is. It was Amherst, right? So it's a huge buyer. That's a lot of properties. So I called them and emailed them for 3 months straight. And finally they're like, okay, call this guy. His name is Joe. He happens to be in Phoenix. So I called him. We hit it off. We're both in Phoenix. We're both around the same age. We just kind of clicked. And then we just started doing a ton of deals together. I mean, at one point I was submitting like 30 deals a month to them. My deals, but other people's deals as well.
Wow.
And then I would just like take notes on his conversations when he would mention like other funds. I would make a note of that and reach out to that fund and just started building our relationship with other funds. And then I joined a mastermind, Collective Greatness, a bunch of guys that specialize in selling to funds. And that, then we combine our buyers. And that kind of just helped us kind of get to the next level.
That's incredible. I didn't even know about Collective Greatness. Yeah. The hedge fund mastermind, huh?
It's a hedge fund mastermind. Yeah, exactly.
That's super cool, man. Wow. That's pretty amazing that you were so persistent to get in contact with them, and they finally just were like, "All right, man, okay."
Well, it took me 3 years to get into Whole Foods. So I would email Whole Foods like every 2 months for 3 years straight, and we finally got our foot in the door. So I knew persistence is key.
Would they ever respond to you?
No,
but they finally did. Zero response, but then finally a response, and then the relationship started.
Correct. Well, so what happens is, relationships break down at some point, and I knew that. So at some point, their supplier is going to drop the ball. And as soon as they did, they're like, hey, these guys, and of course, they were getting my emails. They replied the first time, like, okay, thanks, not interested. But you don't stop. You're persistent. It's kind of like when it's a girl that you really like.
Yeah.
Like if you really like her, are you going to ask her out once and that's it? Right? You're going to pursue her, right? I mean, you don't want to be a stalker. Like there's a fine line between stalker and pursuing, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of the way I see it. It's persistence and energy conquers all, right? Yeah. I think that's a quote from, was it Albert Einstein? I'm not sure, but I think it is. You want to be persistent. So that's the key. You want to be persistent. That's it.
That's awesome, man. So, man, what a growth period there. of working around 30 deals. And now tell us where were those kind of deals at?
Everywhere. So we were doing our own deals. So most of them were like Kansas City, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, some in Texas, and a few other markets, but North Carolina. But I mean, wherever we got a deal, and then we started doing nationwide PPC. So we're doing PPC nationwide. We followed the strategy that Nick Perry and Sean Terry did. So I was always open to other people's ideas. As I mentioned, I work for a family business, very successful. My cousin was the owner, and he had like I said, 2,000-3,000 employees. I mean, he had a lot of money. He did really well. He was recognized, in Mexico. He was friends with governors, and he was pretty, at a high level, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him, like, how did you get to that level? I'm like, what's the secret, right? And so we're having dinners at Shula's Steakhouse here in Chandler. And he's like, you know what? And I'm waiting for this like big, like revealing strategy, right? Like, okay, this is the secret sauce. And he's like, you know what? I was humble. It was number one. I was humble. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I was humble. I realized I didn't know everything, and there's always something to learn. So everyone in our industry, I seek them out. I took their advice, even if they weren't as successful as me, but if they were close or doing well in some degree, I would take their advice, and I would just try to seek them out and kind of follow their guidance. And then I would take their ideas, add it to my business. And that's what really took it to the next level. I was humble. So when I got into the business, that's what I did. I studied everybody. It got to the point, it was funny, Carlos Reyes, he would be like, Vic, you go to everybody's events. And it's true. I went to everyone's events because I wanted to learn, like, what is he doing? What is he doing? And then kind of mesh it with what I can do. So depending on the situation, like, hey, we could do this, or we could do that, or we could do this. It is funny, my friend, I don't know if you know Michael Martinez. He's pretty good on Instagram now. He calls me the Godfather of wholesaling. And, he says it kind of like in jest, right? And I think it's more because I just like studied so many people. If he asks me a question, I'm like, well, you could try this or try that, or, because there's a lot of guys that do way more deals and business than I do and have been doing it for much longer. But I think I've studied so many people. I have a good understanding of how to work a deal. I think that humility has really helped out. Yeah.
That's such good advice, man. I think what you learned from your cousin and then you applied is I like hearing it out loud myself, because it's just a good reminder that those relationships are going to be so important. And people hear it all the time, networking, your network is your net worth. But like when you actually put it to action and see what it can do, just little tiny bits of information and new doors that open because of relationships are just incredible. And then now there's more opportunity that comes from it. So I think that's such a good lesson for people, is by going and studying other people and having those relationships, you're going to pick up little pieces that make sense for you. And then you can put those together. I say it with my, with kind of our sales approach and the way we communicate with sellers. It's a combination of Sean Terry, Carlos Reyes, Steve Trang, Tiffany and Josh High, and then my own experience over the years, just meshing it all together. And I feel fortunate to have those relationships and made those connections so that I could learn and grow from it. And it's so important to do that.
Yeah, well, what's interesting too, like with my cousin, he was so successful, but also the person I know that had the most friends happens to be the most successful guy I know, which is my cousin. Like literally, he had so many, and everywhere he was from Mexico. He would come to Arizona and people were like, hey, he would run into people that knew him. It was just really incredible. And unfortunately he passed away about almost 2 years ago, I think. And they did like a 1 year celebration of his life. And a year later, his friends would still cry for him. Like that's how much they missed him. So it just goes to show the impact he had and how much of a good person he was. So like, it goes to show like, the level of friendship, it goes hand in hand with your success. I mean, just look at, like, for example, Jamil and Pace. I mean, they're super
Yeah.
likable guys. Like, if you look
So
at
likable.
the guys that are really successful, they usually are the ones that get along best with the most amount of people.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
true. We just had Pace and Jamil come speak at an event that I co-hosted in Central California. We sold out the event in less than a week. Over 600 plus people attended it. And someone within Pace and Jamil's community, without us even knowing it, the people who were hosting the event didn't even know this. They printed out like those little like painter sticks with face cutouts of Pace and Jamil.
Wow.
And
That's
it had
funny.
them spread out. So when they came on stage, everybody held them up in front of their face. Like, dude, that's just because they're such givers. And like you said, so likable and have added so much value to other people that people will do stuff like that for them, you know?
Exactly. Well, I mean, Jamil is like a great personality. He's like over the top, but then it's crazy, like what they both do. Like what Pace does, they do like 8-hour like YouTube videos. Like who goes 8 hours, 10 hours, 13 hours straight? It's crazy, right?
It's insane. Yeah,
but that's kind of what got them to where they're at. Now they're on stage with Grant Cardone. Like,
exactly.
you know, so if you want to have an extraordinary life, you have to do extraordinary things, you know?
Yeah. And do those extraordinary things for other people is where you seem to get the most blessings. You know, it's that abundance mindset.
Exactly. 100%.
That's awesome, man. So what do you think were some of those breakthrough moments for you, and what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned throughout?
Well, just, I think, really noticing, like, you know, these guys that are really successful, you know, what they do to get to that next level. And so I got one thing was like, hey, you know what, it's great to wholesale, but also, you know, you got to do some flips. Like if you got a really good deal that, you know, you got a huge discount, you know, if you could wholesale it for 20, but if you could, you know, flip it and make 70, 80, like, why not do that? So that was one thing. Also, relationships with hard money lenders was another thing. I even had one guy said, hey, Vic, you know, why don't you just do your own flips? I'll give you the money. I'm like, all right. And so that, you know, that was another thing. So, you know, having the relationships is key, right? But also too, like, you know, letting people know that you're looking out for them. So my lender, I tell them like, hey man, if I think it's too tight of a deal, I don't want to get stuck, you know, owing you money. I don't want you to get stuck on, you know, foreclosing on a property that you lend me the money on. So if I send you a deal, I want to make sure it's a deal. So normally if I send them a deal, he's like, yeah, it's done. Like a lot of times they don't even have me fill out documents. They just send the money in. Like who does that? Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's and a lot of it comes down to trust and you know, trust you as a person, but trust in your thinking abilities, like that, you know, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. Right. And that comes down to experience, you know, and it's not always intelligence, it's experience and study. Like you have to really study. I think that's key.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that I think I've noticed with a lot of people that are highly successful is they're constantly desiring to learn more. They're always curious. Right. And like you said, most people, you'll find some others that aren't, but most people are very humble too. Yeah. And part of that humility comes from their curiosity. They're generally interested in what other people are doing, no matter what level they're at. Someone might be not at the level you're at, but like you can still learn something from everybody. And I think being humble enough to do that is going to help you.
I think being humble is key. Being curious is key, because like if I wasn't curious, I wouldn't have ever looked into the business to begin with.
Yeah.
Or like, well, hey, how do they get, you know, to own so many properties? Or who are these guys with 23,000 property? Like, you know, what's going on with them? Who are they? What are they about? Like, you always want to seek, you know, knowledge, and you know that comes down to curiosity, right? But I think another key thing that for me, and I always knew it, you want to follow the money, right? Like that's like you always want to follow the money. So like there was years ago, you know, we used to sell. I don't know if you're familiar with Arizona. There's a big supermarket here called Bash's', and Bash's' was like they're like our biggest customer. We're selling them 35 truckloads a month, which is a lot of product. Like imagine 35 trucks a month, right?
Yeah.
And they had some financial issues and they filed bankruptcy, and we were their third third largest supplier. So it was like, I think Coca-Cola, someone else, and then us. So it was a big hit. And so my cousin, he told us like, guys, we got to get into organics, like organic, because it was organic bananas is what we were selling. He said, we got to shift to organics. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to shift to organics. And so he recognized the trend, right? So that's one thing, like you got to recognize trends. So then I started seeing in real estate, like, what's the trend now? Hedge funds. So like, that's the trend. So you got to follow the trend. So that's what we did. Hey, we got these guys that have 23,000 properties. Like, let's find out what's going on with these hedge funds. And so we went that route. Yeah. And that's when things really blew up. Like, that's when we really started doing a lot of sales. Like, I think, quite a few months we were doing 300,000 plus a month, which for us there were some guys doing a lot more than that, but for us, we had a really small team. My operational costs were really low. I know coming from corporate, I knew your operational costs can kill you. So I was always really small. All my team was overseas. Everybody was virtual. We didn't have an office. So you don't have an office doing 300,000 a month. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it was just based on, following the trend, like knowing what's the next big thing and follow the money.
That's amazing. And what would you say like your best marketing strategies were during that time?
Well, for hedge funds, it was cold calling because we could get really niche on our data. Because for them, you're focusing on a buy box, right? So they tell you, we want 1960 or 1980 plus, 3-bed, 1-bed, 3-bed, 3-bed, 2-bed, et cetera, et cetera. So then they tell you the markets. So you can pull the data specifically for them and target that data. So that worked because, with PPC, that doesn't really work as well because PPC, you're getting everything, right? But cold calling is perfect because you're targeting that data only. Now that they're not buying, they pretty much are out of the game for the next few months, maybe 4 to 6 months. So then what do? We go back to motivated data. So now PPC works, direct mail works towards motivated lists. Cold calling still works, but not like it used to. So you got to know how to adapt and shift based upon the market conditions.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's another good lesson. Just you always got to be nimble. You got to be agile. You got to be ready to pivot. Like you said, follow the trends. Like the one thing that worked for you isn't always going to work. And so if you're not willing to be flexible, then you're going to get stuck somewhere.
Yeah, also too, I think the next big trend, because supposedly residential real estate is the next big asset class for Wall Street, right? So what does that tell us? That tells us Wall Street is going to try to own everything under 350 or under 300,000. They want to own everything. So are we going to want to wholesale all of that? No, I think the key is like, wholesale some, sell some to funds, but also too, like if Wall Street's going to try to buy all these assets, I mean, what's going to happen to those assets in 5 to 10 years, right? So guess what? We need to focus on building our own portfolios because that's where the wealth is anyways, but now even more so because Wall Street is seeking it out, right? They want to control that market. So, to not focus on having our own rental portfolios would be foolish.
Yeah. Amen to that. Awesome, man. Well, hey, you got so many good nuggets for the audience today. I appreciate all your time. Again, if you guys want to stay in contact with Victor, don't wait around. Those relationships are so key. Connect with him on Instagram. Say what's up at vic.heredia. And I know Victor will definitely get back to you. That's how we connected through another relationship. I mean, that's how this stuff all works. So appreciate your time, man. And look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thank you, bro. Likewise. We'll talk soon.
Till next time, guys. Peace.